Welcome back for another Friday Night In with 10 Minute Horror. We're coming to you live all the way from Lover's Lane with a special Valentine's episode to warm you up. So find your favorite wine, crack the fucker open, and pour yourself a splash. This is Pray. He was late. He was never late. He was that kind of keener who was always looking to impress and clean the boots of our floor sergeant. He brought that level of intensity only to the things he was passionate about, which meant he overloaded on two focuses: climbing the ranks on our ship and bagging as many women, both on board and off, as he could. His name was Joel Willis, and I'd known him for about 6 months now, just since we both joined up. By joined up, I mean we were both idiots and made the same idiot decision to join the Navy, and were currently docked on Vancouver Island. Joel was a thirsty guy and, with the lack of options on board, quickly depleted them. He'd heard I was someone who only went home alone when I absolutely wanted to. He obviously wanted to be the same, someone who could sweep any fine young dame off her feet and blow her back out for 30 consecutive business minutes, maybe more. But there was a lot of work to be done before you got them back home. It was our first night back on land, and Joel convinced me to let him tag along on my Friday night hunt. I had a reputation on the ship as a ladies' man, or a pickup artist, and he needed a sure thing tonight. And there's never a better time to find a sure thing than when Valentine's Day falls on a Friday. All the couples will be out for dinner, and the singles will be out for dessert. I was predicting lots of 2 to 3 girl cliques, nothing more, which was perfect. We wouldn't approach the groups of 3 though. That always left one of them to get bored and convince the others to leave. We needed 2 girls on their own. Joel arrived, a big stupid grin on his face. He already looked buzzed. Fuck. Slurring was not a way to approach women. Maybe I can dump him off somewhere early and hunt by myself. I didn't want to waste this Friday night. There was a lot of prey out in the city. Bringing Joel was a mistake, but I couldn't blame him too much. He was a sailor on leave and was just looking to get a face bath from a couple of naked tatters. And he was here now, so I led him towards our first stop, which was Ralph's. On the walk there, he asked if we should use fake names, hand signals, or code words. Who the fuck is this guy? Ralph's would be packed tonight with the kind of singles we were looking for. We're starting here mainly because of the 3-date rule. Sometimes subconsciously, sometimes not, but typically the average woman will wait 3 dates, or an average of 9 hours total, before sleeping with an interested suitor. This is partially because it will create 3 different sets of memories with the guy, building her trust in him. They'll have gone to multiple venues and created new experiences in each. What I've found is that you can fast-track the 3-date rule by hitting 3 bars or more in one night. You can turn 9 hours of waiting into 3 and change, and, most importantly, one that ends with a smile. From here, if we picked up trim, we'd move on to the Lux room. It was a little bit more expensive, but we can get some decent cocktails there, and the vibe would set the girls on the right path. If the girls were still down after that, we'd make our way to the next place to seal the 3-date rule. The third spot should be a fun one, somewhere with a dance floor where you can get close with your prey. I was thinking the White Rabbit. There was a DJ playing that night I'd seen before. I brought home a tall, Russian blonde after that show. Hopefully the DJ would bring me some more good luck. After the dancing, the girls might want to stop for snacks after the bar. That's always a bad idea, as filling up on food can cause them to get drowsy and fall asleep. Then the whole night becomes pointless. Nothing's worse than having prey you can't eat. It was better to offer to cook or make some food at home. Grilled cheese, mac and cheese, anything in cheese really. And every guy will have their different after-bar food wheelhouse. Just keep it simple. The objective isn't to make them food at home. It's just to get them home with the promise of food. The rest was on Joel to accomplish. I couldn't help him in the bedroom, whether he needed it or not. I could only help him getting there. The truth is, what wins in the end is confidence. If you want to approach some prey with confidence, you need to be prepared to have walked up to 100 girls prior to. Rejection is not something that should scare you. Instead, you should see it as an opportunity to improve, learn what you did wrong, and adapt. For most men to be successful with even just approaching a woman, the basics are: stand tall with your shoulders back and your neck straight. Free arm and shoulder motion, slow movements, don't hide your hands, speak less, listen more, ask lots of questions, and pay attention to the answers. This is all basic advice, but the current problem was, we weren't even getting to the questions. We were exclusively striking out. Every girl we approached, even the ones I approached by myself, were uninterested. I'd never had so many rejections. Christ, Joel is like a walking Chernobyl. If he wasn't slurring, he was rushing physical contact with the prey he had eyes on. It was embarrassingly impressive with how badly we did at the first bar. We left Ral's, almost getting laughed out of the place because Joel slipped and spilled his rum and coke down his white Oxford cloth. He took the shirt off outside and chucked it in an alley. He was now walking around in a windbreaker and a crewneck t-shirt. The next 2 bars were the same, only worse. Joel got drunker and less intelligible. I needed to pull the chute. It was just past midnight now, and I should have poured the guy into a cab and tried to pull a late-night scramble for the remaining prey. However, we ended up at the White Rabbit and missed the DJ I wanted to see. The bar was just playing loungy music now, and there were only groups of couples hanging around. I was tired and drunk, and Joel was about to slide into unconsciousness. Then, I saw them. 2 figures in the back of the bar, sharing a small booth. 2 women, roughly our age, maybe a touch younger, and attractive, I think. This was one of those bars that was way too darkly lit, so it was difficult to tell who was good looking or not. I guess that's why they say blind people have better sex. Either way, these 2 were our last kick at the cat. There was a brunette and a redhead, although the redhead looked like she was wearing one of those bob cut wigs, so who knows. They were staring at Joel and I. One of them, the brunette, locked eyes with me. Then she broke, looking at the ground. Bingo, that's the sign. She's interested. I got up, telling Joel I was going to the bathroom. I hooked around the bar and made my way over to the booth. I introduced myself to the girls and asked if this was the singles table and if I could join. They smirked at each other, giggled, and motioned to take a seat. The brunette was named Jess and was vibing on me hard. The redhead was named Crystal, so I guess she was probably a stripper. She seemed less interested in the conversation until Joel arrived. From his drunken puddle across the bar, Joel noticed I was at the booth with the girls and flew in for the big dirty swoop. Shit. I thought he was gonna fuck it all up, but Crystal pulled him down beside her, getting very close and friendly. Jess ordered a round of tequila shots, and our world started to spin further. Joel was somehow still functioning, and he accidentally pulled on Crystal's hair. It was indeed a wig, only there wasn't any hair under it. It was just skin. The side of her head was bald. Crystal freaked out, rushing to the washroom, Jess following closely. I slapped Joel across the face, hard. He was shocked by it, but I knew he wouldn't remember. If he wanted to fuck shit up for himself, that was fine, but he wasn't going to anchor me down with him. I attempted some damage control. I left Joel in the booth and went to the bathrooms. I waited for the girls to come out. Jess appeared first, and I apologized for Joel. Jess said it was fine, but wanted to tell me the truth. Her and Crystal had met a few months ago in chemo. They were both bald. Both were in remission. Oh my god. They both had cancer. This was going to be so fucking easy. For me anyways. Joel was going to Joel, but... Crystal came out and asked if Joel and I wanted to come back to their place and eat. Jesus, these girls were taking a line right out of my playbook. I asked them if they were sure they wanted Joel to join, and they both nodded. Damn. I half-carried Joel out to the cab we all piled into. About 30 minutes later, we were pulling up in front of an old pre-World War II apartment building. I wasn't familiar with the neighborhood, and this was about as far north as I'd gone on the island. Joel conked out for the whole drive, but woke up when we arrived and seemed to have a second wind. Whatever, at this point I had Jess in the bag. How Joel handled Crystal would be his own problem. I had half a mind to leave his ass here when I sneak out in the morning. This would be the last outing I spent with this moron. The girl's apartment was on the 3rd floor. No elevator, so we took the stairs. It smelled stale and old, like it hadn't been cleaned or aired out in decades. Their apartment was nicer. It smelled like incense and patchouli and was clean. Blankets, drapes, and carpets hung from the walls. It was dark though, with only one lamp in the back corner lighting the entire entrance, living room, and kitchen. Crystal took Joel's hand and led him through the living room to a hallway. Jess and I stood in the entrance. She grabbed my collar and pulled me close. We kissed and she bit my lip, enough for it to bleed. Fuck, this was going to be an interesting night. I followed Jess to the hallway, where there were 2 doorways, one to the bathroom and one to the bedroom. She told me her and Crystal shared a room, but separated it into 2 by hanging blankets and carpets. Music drifted in from the covered side of the room, behind the makeshift wall. I could hear moaning from Crystal. Jess opened a bottle of wine and poured us each a glass. She turned on her own music, and we sat on the bed and listened and drank. The music from the other room got louder. It turned into heavy metal and was almost overwhelming now. Jess said Crystal can get pretty loud, so she'd be pumping the music the whole time. I didn't really care. I figured Joel would pass out soon enough, so it would just be Jess and I. Hell, maybe Crystal could come join our party. We were sitting on Jess's bed when she climbed onto me. My wine was awkwardly still in my hand, so when she swung her leg over to straddle me, it shattered the glass and sprayed wine on the sheets. She laughed and didn't make an issue of it, but got up to find a dustpan for the glass. While she was gone, I decided to strip the bed and pulled the sheets off. I wish I hadn't. The mattress was filled with stains, and I don't mean stains, as in there was a couple dots. The mattress was covered in huge blotches on top of other blotches of stained fabric. Stains of color I knew too well. Ones I'd cleaned off my own sheets from time to time. That brownish red color that screamed dried blood. The different shades made me realize These stains were all from different times. In fact, multiple times. Then I noticed the handcuffs covered in dried blood. The bed was an old metal frame with tall legs that reached up to the ceiling. Each one of the legs had a set of cuffs locked to it. I heard a floorboard creak behind me. Before I could turn, I felt a crack at the back of my head. Glass from the wine bottle shattered around me, and everything went black. Sounds drifted in, bringing me back to consciousness. It was that heavy metal rock again, but it was quieter. Thank God. My head was throbbing. My eyes opened and I was alone on the bed, naked, but the blankets and carpets separating the two bedrooms had been pulled down, and I could now see into Crystal's. Vomit rushed up my throat. Joel was tied, ankles and wrists, to the 4 posts of Crystal's bed. His abdomen was covered in blood, and his chest was ripped open and exposed. I could see the bones of his rib cage jutting out in different directions like a blooming onion. Crystal was kneeling over him, cupping blood from his empty chest cavity and washing her face with it. But it wasn't Crystal, at least not the one we met. Her wig was gone, and she had frightening, open sores along the top part of her scalp. I couldn't see much more, the rest was in shadows. There was the creak again. My attention turned back to the room I was in, and Jess stood in the doorway, naked. Her wig was gone too, and she had the same open sores on her scalp. Her eyes had sunken back into her skull and reflected like a cat's in the night. Her lower jaw jutted outward, creating a frightening underbite with teeth that weren't previously there. Her arms looked like they had elongated, her claw-like hands now hanging down below her knees. What the fuck was this thing? Jess, or whatever, approached the bed. I tried to get up but found my wrists and ankles cuffed to the bed legs. I struggled and pulled, but the metal on metal wasn't bending. Jess crawled on the bed and straddled me. She dragged her nail down my chest, opening the skin and exposing my rib cage. Crystal was now present, watching with a smile. Jess pulled my chest apart, and the last thing I remember before my life disappeared was her biting into my still beating heart. And that concludes episode 10 of 10 Minute Horror. We hope you enjoyed Prey and are ready for an Arctic expedition in this coming Friday's episode. Bundle up and we'll see you all there, and enjoy the rest of your Valentines with the ones you love most.